Do you really have undiagnosed ADHD, or are you just unwilling to call a spade a spade? That's what we're going to talk about today through the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We're going to talk about decision making today and how the lack of decision making is more your problem than your lack of ability to focus. If you think you have no ability to focus right now, you're going to grab your phone and you're going to open it, okay? We're going to do it together. We're going to swipe, and then we're going to look at our screen time. Please take a look at your screen time, and you're going to tell me below, what is your screen time? If you think you can't focus, how long were you able to focus on social media or on your phone in one day so far? Be honest with yourself and take a look. You don't have a focus problem, you have a decision problem. You can't make the decisions that lead to the life you want. You don't have an inability to focus because obviously you could focus on your phone for hours. And that's something I noticed as a teacher. For over a decade, I realized that the schooling system makes every decision for you. The bell rings, it's time to walk to my next class. Oh, the bell rang, it's time to go get my lunch. Oh, the teacher's telling me I need to do this worksheet. I'm going to do this worksheet. Every decision is made for you. Then you look at the kids' shoes at school. How are they talking? What slang are they using? Even society, that's society, right? You start looking and you're like, oh, and you start acting like everyone else. Social media, you get on social media, you're browsing, and all of a sudden you're like, I need to get this done and I need to get this worked on and I don't like the way this looks. And you start doing all these things that maybe weren't even in your awareness in the beginning. Maybe these decisions weren't even yours. And that's something I want us to sit with today as we go through this chapter. This chapter talks not only about how our indecision starts as really young people, but it goes on to talk about how you need to stop telling before you show. It's called show and tell for a reason. You don't just tell the kids about what you have. You show them and then tell them as you're showing them, right? Because a lot of people will prey on your demise and will delight in watching you fail. So we're going to talk about that today. And then we're going to talk about why every decision you make is a stake in the ground and every decision has a ripple effect through your life, even how much you spent on social media today. And then lastly, we'll talk about how I transformed myself from somebody that believed I don't have any ability to control myself, or I'm a procrastinator, and I used to identify as somebody that probably has undiagnosed ADHD. I took that vocabulary and vernacular out of my mouth, out of my head, and reprogrammed myself to be more decisive. That's what we're going to do today. Let's go ahead and get into it with this first quote that I think is important because this book is 100 years old, okay? And when I read this, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, ADHD isn't something new. It's something that every single human struggles with. And here it is. Procrastination, the opposite of decision, is a common enemy which practically every man must conquer. That means that you're not alone in feeling like this. You're not alone in feeling like you can't focus. It's something that every man needs to conquer. Conquering means that you need to do the reps every day. You need to practice making a decision that's decisive and quick so that you can get stronger and better at your good decision making. And it says here, you will have an opportunity to test your capacity to reach quick and definite decisions when you finish reading this book. And I believe that to be true because this book helped me make some really pivotal decisions in my life and has helped me transform everything. So we're talking about how indecision starts in youth. And if you are a millennial or younger, so you've had a phone in your hand since you were literally a teen, we have some stuff to talk about because I believe that social media is probably our biggest enemy. This is what's causing us to procrastinate more than anything else. And here's why I say that. The majority of people who fail to accumulate money sufficient for their needs are generally easily influenced by the opinions of others. When I read this next one, I said, oh, period. I literally wrote period because I was like, oh, okay, yell at me then. It was so good. And this was what it says. They permit newspapers and the gossipy neighbors to do their thinking for them. Opinions are the cheapest commodity on earth. It's free to make opinions, honey. It's free to not make a decision. It's easier to have an opinion than it is to do the work. Here's a practice that you could do sometimes somebody gives you their cheap opinion. You can imagine yourself with a face that has a mirror on it. And just imagine that that person is reflecting all their insecurities and their opinions and their ideas onto you. I'm rubber, you're glue, that kind of thing. And just let them have it back. Don't give it energy, don't feed it, because you need to realize that their opinion comes from them and inside of them. Has nothing to do with you. And see, when you're on social media, it's very easy to have all these opinions put onto you and all these ideas put onto you and all these decisions put onto you. And what it says here really blew my mind. If you are influenced by the opinions of others, you will never have desires of your own. So as we start thinking about the future we want, I was watching this TikTok actually, and this guy was like, oh, you guys think that because I don't live like Leonardo DiCaprio or like these famous rappers or YouTubers or streamers that I'm not happy? He's like, that shows me how immature you are. Because what makes you think that I view happiness like that? What makes you think that I think getting a bunch of women is a good idea? What makes you think that me having all this money is what I really want? That's never been the goal. I know who I am. I know what I want. And that's just not it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's really insightful, because everybody's like, oh, like, you know, making fun of him in the comments. And I was like, wow, that's really intelligent. And I think that that's how we ought to be thinking. So if you haven't decided what kind of life you want for yourself, I really suggest you pause this video and take a few minutes before you get the rest of this advice and just think, what do I really want for life? What feelings do I want to feel very often? And what can I do that will give those feelings to me? Okay. Because you might think, oh, I want to feel happy and joyful, but sitting on a pile of money might not make you as happy and joyful as you think. What do you really want? Do you want to be able to have free time with your children? Do you want to be able to afford time to lollygag and diddly do? I don't know, but you really need to sit with yourself. Do you want to spend more time at the beach? Those kinds of things that will really make your life better, instead of just projecting that you want whatever it is you see on the internet. And I think this is why indecision starts so young, because like I was saying earlier, when you see all the kids at school in this type of shoe, in that type of clothing, the decision's already made for you. For a lot of kids, some kids can think for themselves, but most kids don't, and they just do whatever they see, and they want to fit in and they want to be cool. And this indecision and these decisions being made by other people really influence you, and you have no sense of who you are. And this is why in teenhood, when kids are going through puberty, they start to feel really lost, because they're trying to identify as whatever they see as cool at school. And this is why it's so important to show and tell instead of just tell people what your plans are. And what it says in the book is that you should only share your ideas and your visions and your mission with your mastermind group. And your mastermind group needs to be in complete sympathy and harmony with your mission. There should be no one in your group that might say something negative or demeaning or belittling about your decision to do what it is you're going to do. When you have people like that, even if they're family or friends, they can be your enemies. And it says that right here in this text, which I think a lot of us need to hear, which is this: close friends and relatives, while not meaning to do so, often handicap one through opinions, sometimes through ridicule, which is meant to be humorous. Thousands of men and women carry inferiority complexes with them all through life, because some well-meaning but ignorant person destroyed their confidence through opinions and ridicule. I had a situation like this with somebody I looked up to. I decided to tell her what I wanted to do, and this is the last time I started a YouTube channel. And then I told her something else I was working on, and she just was like, oh, that's what everybody does when they don't have any idea where they're going in life, and blah, 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 blah. And I remember I let that sit with me, and that seed that she planted in my head, I started watering it. And then eventually I was like, yeah, well, she might be right, and blah, 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 blah. And then that insecurity grew. It just grew in my mind. And then I stopped. And I was like, wait, why did I do that? And now looking back, it's so easy for me to see, because I'm older, more mature, that that was just a reflection of herself not being able to see what I wanted for myself in herself. But at the time I was young and I was more impressionable, and I just took it to heart and was like, oh, wow, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I'm naive. And I just think it's very important for us to realize that right here, you have a brain and mind of your own. Use it. When I read that, I had to start and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And I also thought that that had a lot to do with this right here. You also disclose your plans and purposes to people who will take great delight in defeating you because they envy you. Maybe this person, this is just a projection, I'm not sure, but maybe this person envied my lack of insecurity. Maybe they envied my ability to just do whatever I want without feeling judged or ridiculed and caring what other people think. And they delighted in defeating me without even realizing it, because carefree energy and spirit to just do whatever it is I please. And what I learned from that is something that my mom has told me time and time again. But you know how it is when a parent tells you, it's like you ignore them and then you hear it in a book or like from a mentor or a different friend and you're like, oh my God, wow, that's so profound, even though your parents been telling you it their whole life. And my mom would always say, you have 2 eyes and 2 ears for a reason. You have 1 mouth for a reason. Use them accordingly. And in the text, it says here that your first decision, the very first decision you make, should be to keep a closed mouth and open ears and open eyes. I highlighted it and underlined it. And I was like, wow, that's so profound. And then I was like, wait, didn't my mom tell me that all the time? But you know, sometimes you just need to hear it in a different way from a different person to understand it. Sorry, Mom. I talked about how we're going to talk about how decisions make a stake in the ground for your future. And I think they did a beautiful job illustrating that in this text when they talked about the Declaration of Independence. Now, whether you love American history or not, the story itself, the Declaration of Independence has at least 6 of these principles from the book. Desire, they knew what they wanted. Decision, they made a decision. Remember, they like locked themselves in the room until they made a decision. They had faith that they could do it, even though people said it was crazy and wild and that it would be impossible. They had persistence. They went after it constantly. And they also had a mastermind group where they all came together and used this like hive mind energy to complete their mission. And then lastly, they used organized planning and structuring and strategy to meet their end game. So this is really important because this decision was literally a decision of life or death. And those are the kind of decisive stakes in the ground that you're planting every time you make a decision. And the more intentional your decisions are, the better. The last thing I promised to talk about was my own story. How did I transform this ADHD procrastinating mind to make a decisive decision? It really started with something that I learned in school and teaching, which is backwards design, which is the fundamental principle of the whole universe, which is just begin with the end in mind. Okay? Backwards design is a teaching strategy where you create a curriculum starting with the end game. What's the end game? And even in chess and games like that, you think through to the end game, right? Which is so obvious now, but if you are having a hard time making decisions, know what the end game is, know how you finish and what the end looks like for you. Then what does it take to get there? The journey is what you should enjoy, but every decision you make should be in direction towards the end aim. This end aim should not have to do with other people's opinions. You should not be asking other people what they think you should do, how you should do it, unless it's your mastermind. You shouldn't be just telling anyone about your plans. You should not consult social media, YouTube, Netflix, when you're making your decision for your life and your purpose. You should not think back to your parents, your schooling, or any of that. Think back to when you were really young and what it is that you felt destined and called to do. And plan to the end. What does your end game look like? Start there, and every decision will align a lot easier. That's what I found personally, that every time I knew exactly where I was headed, the decisions became a lot clearer. What is the next best step? That's what I'll leave you with today. Let's stop saying we have undiagnosed ADHD and just start making some decisions with our life, okay?